Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis. Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis. Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis. Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Fendi, Fendi, Prada. Them basic bitches wear that shit, so I don't even bother. Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Fendi, Fendi, Prada. Them basic bitches wear that shit, so I don't even bother. I put that on my partner, I put that on my family. Oakland City represent, address me as your majesty. Yeah, you can kiss a ring, but you can never touch the crown. I smoke a million Swisher blunts and I ain't never coming down. Bitch, you ain't no Barbie, I see you work at Arby's. Never too supersize, hurry up, I'm starving. Gnarly, radical, on the block I'm magical. See me at your college campus, baggy full of Adderalls. Call me if you need a fix, call me if you need a boost. See them other chicken heads, they don't ever leave the coop. I'm in the coop cruising, I got the stolen plates, serving all the fiends over there by the Golden Gate. Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis. Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis. Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi, Prada. Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Fendi, Fendi, Prada. Them basic bitches wear that shit, so I don't even bother. Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Fendi, Fendi, Prada. Them basic bitches wear that shit, so I don't even bother. I put that on my partner, I put that on my family. Oakland City represent, address me as your majesty. Yeah, you can kiss a ring, but you can never touch the crown. I smoke a million Swisher blunts and I ain't never coming down.
Do you agree that there's no such thing as racism, sexism, homophobism, Islamophobism, deadbeat dadism, white supremacism, and all the other isms? Destiny, that's a woman's name. You were raised by your daddy and mama. That makes you half man and half woman. You are a beta. You're not a real man, beta. I just have one question for ya, beta. There's just one thing I want to know. Destiny, do you love all people? Do you really love the blacks? Destiny, do you love black people? Why can't you just answer the question? Destiny, do you love all people?
Systems, the company store, the paradigm of absolute control. And that's why we're just out here doing simple things, pointing out that we're meant to be in nature and be natural. And this is where we find the source that God made to transcend the New World Order. And that's why they want to try to keep us out of it.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people. They're a bunch of Christian murderers, scum. They're on giant death factories, keeping babies alive and selling their body parts. What more do you need to know about these people? I go out and face these scum. They literally crawl out from under rocks. They have green looking skin and they run around screaming, we love Satan, we wanna eat babies. I have them on video. Hillary's in the creepy, weird, sick stuff, man. She sleeps in the same room with that creepy, weird woman whose mother wears a hood over her head. What the hell? That woman number one is ugly. Imagine how bad she smells, man. I'm told her and Obama just stink. Obama and Hillary both smell like sulfur. Literal vampire pot and the goblins are hobbling round coming after us. My spirit gets close to that evil and I feel it go. We're such self-centered crap. We don't even notice hell itself rising up against us. Millions of pointed people of the very worst type, and I'm so pissed. We're gonna stab your daughter at the mall. We're gonna stab your wife, your son. We're gonna stab you with a butcher knife, and then the police chief is gonna say, we love our Somalis, we love our Muslims. Oh, they're so good, oh, they're so sweet.
I was watching Fox News as I worked out this morning.
Whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house.
I said certified freak. 7 days a week. Wet ass P word. Make that pullout game weak. Yeah, you effin' with some wet ass P word. Bring a bucket and a mop for this wet ass P word. Give me everything you've got for this wet ass P word. Beat it up, N word, catch a charge. Extra large and extra hard. Put this P word right in your face. Swipe your nose like a credit card. Hop on top, I wanna ride. I do a kegel while it's inside. Spit in my mouth, look in my eyes. This P word is wet, come take a dive. It continues along these lines. And it gets significantly more vulgar. Like, a lot more vulgar.
I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat you. I will eat your ass. My children aren't going hungry. I'll do it. I'll drink your blood. And I'm starting to think about having to eat my neighbors. You think I like sizing up? I'm gonna haul him up back chain. Chop his ass up, size it up. I'm gonna haul him up back chain. Chop, 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 chop. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat you. I will eat your ass. I'll barbecue your ass flat. I will cook your ass up so fast, and I'll tell them, well, I killed a cow out back, baby. You think Christ would eat somebody? He would never do that. I will. I'm ready to hang them up, gut them and skin them and chop them up. You know what? I'm ready. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat you. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat you. I will eat your ass. And that's why I want the globalists to know. I will eat your ass first. I swear to God, if it's the last thing I do, I'm gonna get my hands around your throat.
What rolls downstairs, owner and pears, rolls over your neighbor's dog? What's great for a snack and fits on your back? It's long, long, long. It's long, long. It's big, it's heavy, it's wood. It's long, long. It's better than bad, it's good. Everyone wants a long. You're gonna love it long. Come on and get your long. Everyone needs a long.
Log from Blammo. It's another viewer broadcast. Let's go! How's it going, chat? How you doing? How's it going? How you been, everybody? How you been? It is Thursday, December 22nd. Welcome to the Be Weird broadcast. We got ourselves another banger of a stream for you here today. But yeah, we coming at you from Northern Ontario. That's right, we got internet up here, even though it's a frozen wasteland. And yeah, we're going to be checking out the big news of the day, which is Trump's tax returns, baby. That's right, we finally got them. We're going to take a look at just how much money he has made or lost. It's going to be good. I'm excited. I hope you're excited. It's going to be a good stream. We got some interesting stuff later today. I'm going to be having an interesting discussion about artificial intelligence. So maybe we take a closer look at ChatGPT. I've been tinkering around with it last couple days, having a blast. Honestly, got a bit drunk a couple days ago and just played with ChatGPT, and woo, it was a lot of fun. It was crazy. All sorts of weird stories and poems and song lyrics and all sorts of weird nonsense. So we're going to be talking to Globus the Elder, who just recently had a talk with, who was it, Endless Cemetery? He just talks about AI, and I just finished a paper on artificial intelligence. So we're going to take a closer look at that. It's going to be super good. That'll be later tonight, though. That'll be actually an evening stream. A bit off-brand for me, I know. But yeah, should be an interesting discussion. And then today we have as our second section the Zelenskyy Biden address. I think that'll be interesting, watching conservatives lose their minds over it. Even conservative Canadians are losing their minds over it. And honestly, I'm kind of disappointed. There's so many Ukrainians here in Canada. Like, what gives? This should be an easy dunk. And yet here we are. So we're going to be listening to that momentous speech. You know, it's history. It's the bear invaded the breadbasket of Europe, and now America is gonna back Ukraine until this war is over. And honestly, it's pretty much the best case scenario for NATO. You know, they're like, yeah, we gotta deal with this terrifying threat, and it's basically on the best moral terms imaginable. So yeah, we're gonna take a look at that address. There's some cringe, there's some symbols and gestures. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. So I'm here for it. I hope you're here for it. How you been, chat? How's it going? Do anything exciting? Did you put up a Christmas tree? Did you eat good food? All right, I'm a blast off. We're gonna go pull up the Trump tax return story. It's all over the place. There's so much to dig into, to be honest. Yeah, we finally got him. It only took like 5 years. Oh my god. 6 years? Oh my god. And there's all sorts of stuff that we're learning, because it's a lot of information. Like, we already knew he was full of shit. I think he lost like $1 billion over 10 years, something crazy. But yeah, let's take a look at it. We got ourselves some news stories from all over the place, and yeah, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Let's get into it. Okay. So the takeaways from the House Committee's report on Trump taxes by Jean Sahadi, Katie Lebowsko, and David Goldman of CNN. I'm going to see what the audio has to say. And maybe get some water.
You've spent hours behind closed doors.
Got no water.
Just come out
Oh, I can't do that.
vote.
Stupid Max.
Can you first explain to me exactly what you all are voting to do? Are we going to see a summary of some sort, or are we going to see all of the tax returns?
Both, but for a limited period. Yes, Aaron, we've been at it for about the last 3.5 hours discussing all aspects of this. Now there will be a report to the House prepared by Chairman Neal and his staff, a very thorough report. It includes a number of attachments. It includes additional analysis from the Joint Tax Committee, and it will also include some Trump tax returns.
And is that's going? We're going to get sort of one thing: an executive summary, attachments, and some of the tax returns. That's going to be it. We're not also going to get all the tax returns. Just to be very clear here.
You will get all of the tax returns that the Supreme Court and the lower courts said that Mr. Neal's request could get. You will get all of those. That may be delayed for a few days only to permit time to redact things like Social Security numbers, personal ID numbers, that type of thing. But you will get the complete Trump tax returns such as they are for the years that Mr. Neal requested.
Okay, so that's 2015 through 2020, just to be clear, yeah?
That's correct.
Okay.
And I think what I find surprising, our focus had been on the IRS audit and whether it was being done properly, is the IRS did no audits at all until such time as the day they received Mr. Neal's request for these documents, and that day they requested the first audit. They have yet to complete a single audit of Mr. Trump, and I think they'll also be surprised by what's not there with the tax returns, and that is supporting data. Any taxpayer who goes in for audit has to produce some receipts and some affidavits and some substantiation, and that just seems to be missing from what we've been provided.
So yeah, that's like another story that we'll take a look at. It's just that like the IRS didn't do their job. They just like skipped on it. So I don't know what's up there. So yeah, Trump repeatedly defied convention, refused to release his tax returns. And committee says IRS failed to properly audit Trump. Ways and Means Committee asserts that the IRS presidential audit program was dormant during Trump's term. The report found that during Trump's time in office, the IRS opened only one mandatory audit for his 2016 tax return, and that didn't take place until the fall of 2019. Sheesh. So if you paid taxes, you're an American who paid taxes, this is gonna sting. The 2017 tax return, meanwhile, was marked as evaluated and picked up for examination if necessary. Oh man, oh geez. Okay, all right. Let's move on to the next one. Sorry, I think my allergies are acting up. So yeah, let's see if we can get some talking heads. I just gotta get some water real quick. Alright, here we go. Oh man, I can't believe it, man. He paid $0 in taxes.
A 6-year battle to keep his record shielded from the same scrutiny that every president has faced since the 1970s. House Democrats have voted to publicly release former President Donald Trump's tax returns. Members of the House Ways and Means Committee cast their votes along party lines last night following a 4-hour closed-door hearing on the matter. Although the full documents are not expected to be released for several days, the committee is already out with a 39-page summary of its findings. Here are some of the takeaways. In 4 of the 6 years reviewed, Trump reported a negative income to the IRS. His income was in the green in 2018 after his first full year as president, and again in 2019, before falling back into the red in 2020. In 3 of the 6 years reviewed, Trump paid $750 or less in federal income taxes. That includes 2020, where he paid 0. The committee also raises questions about IRS scrutiny of a substantial number of declarations made on the former president's returns, despite claiming millions of dollars in deductions from charitable donations. The committee writes that the IRS made no efforts to verify the legitimacy of Trump's claims, quote, even when no supporting documents were provided. Those and other alleged failures by the IRS to scrutinize Trump's returns are outlined in another new report from the committee. There, lawmakers write that the IRS only conducted an audit of Trump's tax returns once, despite it being mandatory every year for sitting presidents. Only after the committee launched its investigation into Trump's returns did the IRS take any steps to look further into the filings. In an internal memo, the agency claimed it did not have enough resources to examine all the potential issues in Trump's returns. That's one thing that's definitely true. There are issues. A lot of issues here. Let's bring in Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and Washington correspondent for the New York Times, Charlie Savage. Charlie, what are we learning so far? I know we have a 39-page summary. We'll learn a lot more soon. But is it perhaps the biggest thing he was hiding is that he was the biggest loser in terms of people who file taxes?
You get him.
Or is it more? Is it sources of income that we're looking at?
Well, we only have some top-line numbers from those tax years starting at 2016 that the committee provided in this report. So this is very preliminary, and the raw documents are going to be put out sometime today or tomorrow, and I think there's going to be a big hive mind effort to make sense of it. But the early cut at these numbers do show, as you just showed on the screen, that of his 4 years in office, he basically paid no taxes for the first and fourth year. He did have some income in 2018 that allowed him to pay about $1 million in taxes because he had sold off some properties and had some capital gains taxes. And throughout that period, he was reporting making large charitable donations in cash. And the committee is flagging whether there is substantial support to show he actually made those contributions, or whether he was just putting numbers on the page and wanting the IRS to look at that. I think a larger takeaway here, though, is the other part of what you were getting into, which is the IRS has rules that say that sitting presidents and vice presidents must be audited every year. The IRS, under the Trump administration's control, did not do that in 2017, did not do that in 2018, and only started looking at the first of his tax returns in April 2019, the very same day that House Democrats on the Ways and Means Committee sent a request to the Treasury Department for data about his taxes and any associated audits. So
considering that Republicans lost their minds when Obama just wore a tan suit, can you imagine if Obama wasn't audited for the 8 years he was in office, and then after he left office it was discovered he had national securities at like some building he owned at some home? Like, can you just imagine the media if the shoe were on the other foot? It still astounds me, like, how far we've come. This is just crazy at this point.
There's clearly deep dysfunction at a minimum at the IRS in this auditing program. And that one of the reasons that's important is because the committee Democrats had said they were looking for these taxes because they needed to assess whether that program was strong enough, whether it needed to be strengthened, whether it was doing its job. And all along, Trump's lawyers and Republicans said that was just a pretext. It turns out there was something big there that they discovered.
So, Charlie, dysfunction is one thing, but could you explain the tenure of Charles Reddick, a California tax lawyer who Donald Trump appointed to head the IRS? He recently left the position, maybe was forced out of the position, whatever. But could you explain his role, his potential role in this, if any?
So we don't know. We talked last night to the commissioner of the IRS in 2017, who was running the agency when they should have done their first audit of Trump's taxes, because he was the sitting president in 2017. And he disclaimed knowledge. I didn't know about that program, or I wasn't involved. Could not explain why there was no audit that year. Then the gentleman you just mentioned took over in 2018. He had written a opinion column in 2016 as a tax lawyer in California defending Trump's refusal to make public his tax returns as a presidential candidate, which broke with modern precedent, sort of post-Watergate norms. All major party presidential candidates release their finances. All sitting presidents do. Trump famously wouldn't. This guy said, "Oh, that's great. He shouldn't have to." And then Trump put him in charge of the IRS.
Oh.
So he certainly
He
is
fished
going
for an
to
answer?
probably face some questions from the Senate. I doubt that House Republicans, when they take over the chamber, will be interested in calling him starting next month.
Oh my God. All right, next clip.
Joining us now, we have the Democratic member of the House Ways and Means Committee, Congressman Tom Suozzi of New York. And it's really great timing for you to be on. We want to ask about these tax returns. We've learned a lot about Donald Trump this week. Just this week alone, he's dealing with a lot, Tom. The DOJ, of course, getting these 4 criminal referrals from the January 6th committee. As we've been discussing, we're not necessarily sure what they'll be doing with them, if anything, but they probably are going to be taking a good long read at the January 6th Select Committee's full report, which is being released to the public today. We can't put aside the documents that he took from the U.S. government and to Mar-a-Lago that,
don't
right
forget
now is
that.
being investigated, whether he stole
criminal
them, whether
investigation.
he's returned them, and the criminal
Disband the FBI.
exposure that he faces there. But the tax returns this morning are proving a number of things, some basic things like he lied about being audited. And it proves a number of things about Trump's financial dealings, his financial moves, moves he made to avoid taxes, paying very, very, very low numbers in taxes, in 1 year paying 0 in taxes, and also losses. So my question to you, sir, is what is the wrongdoing that has been exposed so far here as these tax returns are finally being revealed to the public? What is the wrongdoing that you think needs to be pursued?
I think the thing that people like immediately feel is like, if I have a year where I lost money, I starved, like I didn't eat, or I couldn't pay heating bill, or I couldn't pay this or that. Like I think that's the sort of the thing that grinds people's gears the most, is like listening to how someone could lose so much money and get the government to sort of like pay. Like it's hard to make sense of it. But I think for like some of these years, you just had capital gains and like paid it forward, which is why he had paid 0 in 2020.
Well, the focus of the Ways and Means Committee on this issue has been about the process that's set up to make sure that every president is audited by the IRS. There's a rule that was set up back in 1977, says every president's supposed to be audited, so the president can't go in and say, hey, don't audit me, or if somebody could say, go after that president, no fear or favor. And everybody took that for granted for years, since 1977, because every president released their taxes. It wasn't really a big issue. When President Trump decided to break with tradition and not release taxes, people said, well, what can we do here? Well, the good news is we can count on the IRS. They're mandatorily required to audit the president. We started digging into that, and we released yesterday and found out yesterday, really, that they didn't do their job.
That's wild.
The IRS was dormant. They didn't pursue the president without fear or favor the way they're required for every president. So
Curious
now we are proposing legislation that every president must be audited, because right now it's just a regulation of the IRS. It's not a law passed by Congress. We're proposing a law that says every president must be audited on a timely basis. You have to have enough resource. I mean, the IRS had one person looking at one set of his taxes from 2016. They didn't look at the other years. And they didn't have any experts, people on partnerships, on foreign affairs, on the different sophisticated transactions that this president was involved in.
So why? Why was it dormant? Why was he not audited? Is anyone asking the question and pursuing the answer?
Put his thumb on the scales.
That's going to be the continuing push, because we need to make sure the IRS is doing its job on everything that they do, but certainly on this as well. Was it because it was the president's appointee, or was it because the whole system has just been broken down? We don't know the reason that the IRS did not do its job. We don't know if somebody called up and said, hey, the Treasury Secretary was appointed by the president. The IRS agent, commissioner is appointed by the president. Do we know if there was a phone call made, or was this just because the whole system had broken down?
Probably a phone call.
We had to pursue this in a way that was not political, just to look at the legislative requirements that to do our job as a separate branch of government, what can we do to ensure that every president and every vice president is getting audited?
Okay, but like a thought game for you. What are the chances that a presidential candidate who refused to release his tax returns and said he was under an audit becomes president and continues to say he's under an audit when it turns out he was completely lying and never was? What are the chances that it was just the IRS that made a mistake and didn't do it?
Listen, I've never been engaged in hyperbole when it was related to this president, but I can say very clearly President Trump is a liar. And President Trump, broke with all norms. And now we have to do a once-in-a-generation fix to fix this problem that we thought was addressed back in the 1970s.
I'm sensing a pattern.
So, Congressman, can we assume, I assume we can assume, that you've seen the tax returns, that you've gone through the tax returns. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, so can you tell us about the charitable contributions? Given Donald Trump's lack of character, charitable contributions, how much has he thrown into the pot? Did he have receipts for the charitable contributions that he made? What's in the tax returns on that?
The only thing I can tell you is that his charitable contributions, as reported by the JCT, the Joint Tax Commission, are not substantiated. There's very little detail about his cash contributions.
So he just
There's very little detail about his conservation easements where he got millions of dollars of deductions. There's very little detail or substantiation on a lot of different topics, which is why we're proposing these fixes to make sure that every president is properly audited. This is not going to end today.
IOUs?
This is not going to be a two-day story. This is going to go on for a long while to try and fix this process.
Congressman Swazi, Tom, you and I are New Yorkers. We know each other.
I know, Reverend.
A lot of those contributions, I understand, he claimed were in cash, which is interesting in of itself.
Yeah.
Why was he making cash contributions? I've been in New York all my life. I don't know anyone that ever got one, certainly not in cash. But putting that aside, isn't it not something of real concern that he has in many ways brought down what we give as respect, no matter who is in office, of the presidency? I mean, you're talking about a guy that became president
joining me now.
Just outright lied and just outright told the rules and the standards of the presidency, they don't apply to him. And those of us that knew him in New York knew who he was, but you kind of hope that he would grow into the office, and clearly he hasn't. So is not the committee concerned about preserving the dignity and standards of the presidency that has been tainted by this Trump presidency?
That's exactly what the concern is, Rev. This president has broken with all kinds of norms. And a lot of us for years, 5 years now, have been shaking our heads and saying, what can we do about this? How are we going to stop this breakdown of our society, where people just break with norms and nobody's holding them accountable?
The breakdown
and
of
to
society.
do this the proper way, the chairman of our committee, Richie Neal, chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, said, listen, we got to follow the rules here. We can't be political. There were no leaks. He talked about last night. He says, he's very proud of his committee. There have been no leaks from the committee whatsoever. True. We followed a process and said, let's look at what we can do legislatively to try and fix this going forward. Because we've all been tearing our hair out for the past 5, 6, 7 years. And we've got to just set up procedures and processes and systems to protect us against this type of egregious behavior. That's what the Ways and Means Committee has done. That's what we're going to do with the legislation that we're going to be presenting to the Congress.
Jay Johnson, jump in with a...
There was this like conversation that was going around like in the Trump years when people were like, oh man, he's just blowing through all our norms and we just got to turn all our norms into laws. And it's like not necessarily the solution. I mean, like you kind of just need norms in a society because you can't legislate for everything, especially like American Congress. They can't pass laws for shit. But yeah, norms are like how society enforces, like, I don't know, some level of decency, and I'm not sure you can like make decency into a law. You know what I'm saying?
The question.
I don't really have a question. I do have a comment. Are there cash payments made for contribution? Yes, by people. The jails are full of them. The thing that comes across to me every time I think about this, the next rally Donald Trump does, if it's, I want him to explain to the coal miners in West Virginia or the steel workers in Pennsylvania why it is, look them in the eye and explain why it is I get to pay less in federal income taxes than you, the so-called billionaire.
You know, Jay, I think that even the president's most ardent supporters have to agree that he's not above the law. He's got to follow the law. He's got to pay his taxes. And that's why the system was set up for these mandatory audits of presidents' tax returns. And you know what? Didn't happen. Didn't happen the way it was supposed to happen. The resources weren't put towards it. Wasn't done on a timely basis. And people say, well, why do you have to release his taxes in order to make sure there's an audit? Because if we just said, oh, we found all this stuff and we think there's got to be mandatory audits going forward legislatively, people say, oh, what are you basing that on? Well, we're basing it on these tax returns. Look at them.
Yeah. And so far we know he lied bold-faced over and over again about getting audited. Congressman,
shocking.
Shocking. We also, I'm hoping that's somebody
that just want to stand
sort of
around
Trump land, the people who follow him,
his supporters don't care. Yeah, exactly.
To the lengths that are hard to even understand, perhaps see this because they remember him saying that.
I want him to explain to his supporters why he's a hypocrite and why he's full of shit. And it's like, yeah, no. It's not gonna happen.
Released a report on former President Donald Trump's tax returns. What do you know?
What we know is that the originally when the House Ways and Means Committee launched this investigation, it said the reason was not punitive for Trump, but it was just so they could assess an IRS program that requires presidents to be audited. And this stems from the Nixon days. And, the general opinion a lot of people, me included, had was, okay, that's a good reason. You want Trump's taxes, you came up with that, sounds good. It turns out there was a problem with the IRS and that they did not audit Trump's taxes his first 2 years in office. In fact, they did not begin to audit them until the same day that the committee requested copies of his returns back in 2019.
Why did the IRS not do this? Is this the fault of former President Trump or the IRS?
IRS.
To be determined right now. I mean, the IRS is renowned for being understaffed. My friends over at ProPublica have done several articles talking about just the returns that American taxpayers could get if we invested in more IRS auditors.
Tax rich.
But Trump also did have the IRS for a significant part of his administration. So we really don't know the answer to that yet.
You had a timeline of the House Ways and Means Committee's journey to get these documents until 2020. Can you give us a brief walkthrough of that?
Yeah, sure. So the Democrats took control of the House in January 2019. So we are now almost 4 years later that they finally got these copies. And it was known up front that this was something they'd be searching for. But they requested them. Mnuchin refused. They subpoenaed. Mnuchin refused. It went all the way to the Supreme Court. The court said yes. There were many times, though, that the Democrats, specifically Richie Neal, the Democrat of Massachusetts who chairs the Ways and Means Committee, could have pushed this a little bit faster than he did. A lot of times he waited to file a subpoena, like Trump or the Trump or the Treasury Department would miss a deadline, and he just, let's give him some more time.
Yeah,
and that's really part of the reason why we're here now, where the Democrats only have control of the House for a couple more weeks, and here we are getting the documents right now, and it's kind of a rush. Can they get them out? Because as soon as the Republicans take control, this investigation is going to stop.
That's crazy to hear.
And we also found out that
oh my God, now that I think about it, I've been following this story for a long time, and there was just such an utter sense of dejection, like left-wingers having to explain to other really, really disappointed left-wingers, like, yeah, I know this is stupid and silly and taking forever, but, it's so that you can prove to a judge that you did everything you can to be reasonable and to allow people to respond to subpoenas even when they miss deadlines, yada, yada. Even though the word subpoena literally translates to under penalty of. Like, you're supposed to do it. It's a lawful order. And man, it's so crazy to watch Democrats tie one hand behind their backs and fight with, like, I don't know, an ape with rabies. It's wild.
Was Trump paid $0 in federal taxes in 2020. Do presidents usually pay taxes while in office?
Yeah, I mean, that would be on their salary. Donald Trump is a very different president than anybody we've had before. With all of his business interests, there are obviously several ways that can be interpreted, but with all of his large business interests, that does leave him the opportunity to get a lot of tax write-offs that weren't going to exist for, say Barack Obama, whose income was largely derived from being a politician and then book sales.
And why has he been so adamant for years that he didn't want his tax returns released to the public?
The general thought was that there was something in there that he wouldn't like coming out. And we learned a lot about what was in his taxes back in September 2020, where the New York Times had a blockbuster having obtained some of the documents we later learned from Mary Trump. And he probably didn't want it out there that there were a couple years he paid nothing, or that he paid just $750 a few times. Trump has been very private with his finances, and when given the opportunity to keep things private and fight, he's done it all the way through his career, well before he was president.
Okay, next clip. Oh, there it is. Oh, whoops.
Now, NBC News. Joining me now, NBC News senior Capitol Hill correspondent Garrett Hake, New York Times investigative reporter Suzanne Craig, who won the Pulitzer for her reporting on Trump's finances.
Oh,
and
dang.
Garrett, I should make it very clear, we're not going to see the tax returns. There will be summaries of the tax returns if they decide to release them. Walk us through what exactly we're going to see after the Ways and Means Committee meets this afternoon, and we don't even know yet, as of last check, whether it will be public, private, or a little combination of both?
It sounds like the latter, Andrea. Look, the Ways and Means Committee has to operate under very strict secrecy rules as applies to these tax returns, any tax returns they obtain through the rule they used to get Donald Trump here. What they're going to have today is a hearing that'll be open only for the briefest moment, and then they will go into executive session. They'll kick all the press out, and members will have an opportunity to debate, discuss, and review these tax returns, which, again, based on these secrecy rules, they haven't even been able to directly confirm that they have had up until this point. And so that hearing will happen today. We expect to hear from the chairman, Richie Neal, afterwards to reveal whatever it is the committee has decided to do with these returns. And as you pointed out, it's unlikely that we're going to see any kind of raw data, certainly not today. But what we may see, and what there is existing precedent for, is some kind of staff report potentially on what's in these returns. That was the case with Richard Nixon's returns in the 70s. It could be the case here. As you pointed out, this is 6 years of returns from 2015 to 2020. The committee requested them under this rule that allows them to essentially review presidential tax returns under audit. But I think a lot of people are curious to see whether there's conflicts of interest here, and whether, as the Times has so excellently reported, perhaps Donald Trump has not been telling the truth about his finances over the years. It's unlikely, again, we get that complete picture, that complete answer today. But, you can kind of deduce, Andrea, the committee wouldn't be having this meeting at all if they plan to just kind of declare victory after the Supreme Court decision and go home. They want to get something out into the public. Now it's just a matter of time in a very condensed window to find out exactly what that's going to be.
And Suzanne, I wanted to make a couple of things clear. We have always gotten tax returns from presidents. They're released, routinely. And it was only Donald Trump who said, because his were under audit, and all presidents' taxes are also automatically under audit because of their high profile. So he said because they were under audit, he couldn't release them. That was not true. He could have released them at any time.
He could have released them. I want to say two things. One, when I see this and that we've come to today after how many years of Donald Trump saying he was going to release his tax returns and he doesn't. If he had just released some of them back in 2016, we wouldn't be here today. It's just incredible, and it's so Donald Trump to just fight this to the end, even when it doesn't make sense.
It's wild.
So, that's one of the first things, just on the fact that he has let this actually get to today is incredible. And it's now just a horrible news event, but it has been every time it comes up for him. And then secondly, there is it's a massive ongoing audit that the IRS undertook, from some it was an issue that stems back to 2008, 2009. And if it goes against him, it could cost him up to in excess of $100 million. It's huge. And what I'm sort of looking for today that I think is going to actually move the ball forward is information on that audit. What we do know from his taxes, and the New York Times obtained his taxes through 2018, we saw that he has, like you said, very big tax returns. He doesn't make very much money. Most of his businesses, in fact, lose money. We're not going to see, I don't think, anything that breaks that narrative today. We're going to see a lot of red ink. We will, I think, hopefully learn a little bit more about how he did during the COVID-19, the crisis. A lot of his businesses are dependent on hospitality. So we may get some insight into that. They weren't doing well before. They probably did horribly during the pandemic. So those are kind of the things I'm looking for, kind of into today and tomorrow if they do actually release the returns.
And do you think it'll show us more about the fact that he's not as wealthy as he had always claimed, or will it give us more insights into underreporting and over-reporting income, depending on whether he wanted to inflate or lower his income for tax reasons?
No, income tax returns, they certainly give you an idea of somebody's wealth because you see, how much money they're making, but they're not an indication of net worth. And I don't think we're going to see that, but we're going to see his businesses under pressure. I don't think there's any doubt about that. When I think about the fact he sold the old post office, one of his prized assets, his most recent, it wasn't quite a new development, but a huge rehab. He sold it. You don't usually do that right after you've, put all that money into something to sell it right away. It was an indication that he possibly needed cash. And even the NTFs, the deal he recently did, it's horrible for his brand. This is a guy who is all about his brand. And we can, maybe it's just too late for any sort of brand discussion about Donald Trump. But the fact that he's doing stuff like that indicates to me that he needs money.
And
I just want to clarify, we refer to it here as the old post office building. Of course, it was the Trump Hotel, which he turned into, this historic building into a, luxury hotel, which was a centerpiece of his presence in Washington. And
he spent so much money on that, Andrea. Like, it was incredible. It's a beautiful building. And I just don't think you're going to, he sold it because it could bring in a fair bit of money at a time when we suspect through our reporting that he probably needed it.
It's all going to be fascinating. We'll see how much we see.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, as they say. There's a cliche for you. Garrett, thank you so much. Suzanne, as always, you're great reporting your insights into all of this.
Thank you.
So valuable.
All right, we're going to get on to the next piece. So this is actually a story from the BBC. It's already international news. Marshall just trying out a new function here. Studio mode. Yeah, baby. All right, let's take a look. Trump tax returns will be made public. A committee in the U.S. House of Representatives has voted to make public 6 years of Donald Trump's tax returns. The move caps a nearly 4-year legal battle by Democrats to obtain the documents, which was ultimately decided by the U.S. Supreme Court last month. The panel also revealed that the IRS failed to audit Mr. Trump during his first 2 years in office. The auditing of sitting presidents is mandatory. U.S. presidents are not required by law to release their tax returns, but for decades they've done so voluntarily. In contrast, Mr. Trump has sought to shield his personal finances. The U.S. House Ways and Means Committee voted 24-16 on Tuesday evening to publish the documents, with all Democrats on the panel in favor and all Republicans opposed. One of the committee members, Pennsylvania Democrat Brendan Boyle, said afterwards, quote, "This is one of the most important votes I will ever cast as a member of Congress, and I stand by it 100%. But Kevin Brady, the ranking Republican on the committee, said Democrats had just, quote, "unleashed a dangerous new political weapon. They're going to hold us to make us accountable. Well, they're going to make us do what we've always done." Quote, "Congress's enemies list is back," said the Texas congressman. "Every American taxpayer who may get on the wrong side of majority in Congress is now at risk." It is unclear when the public will see the financial documents which stem from 2015 to 2020, when Mr. Trump was running for president and serving in the White House. Lloyd Doggett, a Texas Democrat on the panel, told CNN the release of the files could take a few days in order to redact personal information such as Social Security numbers. The returns could offer a first-hand look into Mr. Trump's finances, including his assets, sources of income, charitable contributions, and liabilities, including the possibility of loans owed to foreign entities. That's the juicy bit. Does he owe any foreign nationals money? That might be a bad thing. In 2016, Mr. Trump became the first major party presidential nominee since Richard Nixon in 1972 to decline to publicly release his tax returns while campaigning for office. I'm just going to put on a bit of music. There we go. However, on Tuesday, Democrats on the panel said that Mr. Trump was not actually under an audit in 2016 and that the IRS did not begin their official audit until 2019. The House Ways and Means Committee had first sought the returns when Democrats took over the lower chamber of Congress in 2019. The committee, citing a federal law allowing it to request special access to individual tax returns, said the information was necessary as a part of a review of federal tax law. Republican critics, however, have countered such explanations were merely an excuse to access Mr. Trump's financial documents. It doesn't really make a difference. They're still exercising their powers. The Trump administration refused to cooperate with the committee's request, prompting a drawn-out legal battle that ended when the U.S. Supreme Court, in an unsigned opinion, upheld an appellate court ruling that the Democrats were entitled to the returns. In 2020, the New York Times obtained leaked copies of 18 years of Mr. Trump's tax returns. In a series of articles on the topic, the newspaper reported that the president paid no federal taxes in 10 of those 18 years and only $750 in each of his first 2 years in the White House. It also disclosed that the then president was in a fight with the IRS over the legitimacy of a $72.9 million tax refund he had claimed and owed more than $400 million in debt due by 2024. That's coming up soon. A representative of Mr. Trump's business empire denied the accuracy of the report at the time. Official copies of the former president's tax returns, which are now expected to be released before Republicans take control of Congress on the 3rd of January, should settle the matter. The vote comes one day after a Democratic-led congressional panel asked the U.S. Justice Department to prosecute the former president for insurrection and other criminal charges related to last year's riot by his supporters. Even Britain is calling it a riot. It's goofy. Okay, lots of stuff has happened. Holy jeez, holy guys, oh wow. He said it could take a few days for information about the tax returns to come out. Alright, here's from the Daily Beast. We haven't seen Trump's taxes yet, but it's clear the IRS failed America. The IRS is required to conduct audits of the president and vice president while they're in office, but Trump apparently got a pass. By Shan Wu of the Daily Beast. The quest for Donald Trump's taxes is finally over, and whatever secrets Trump fought for years to conceal will soon be revealed for all to see. But one fact is already clear. The IRS botched its job. The IRS is required to conduct audits of the president and vice president while they are in office. This requirement arose in 1997, likely in response to concerns over Nixon's tax troubles. But the policy, enshrined in the IRS manual, section 4.8.4.2.4, was not followed during Trump's term in office. During his 4-year term, the agency opened only one audit of this 2016 return, which only commenced in 2019 after Chairman Richard Neal of the House Ways and Means Committee sent a letter to the IRS seeking Trump's returns and tax information. That audit is still not finished. It is 2022 and they haven't finished an audit from 2016? That's insane. That's 5 years? Wait, what? Wait, what? Alright, let's see if I can make this, oh, I guess not, eh? I'll go like this. Yeah, there we go. As the committee characterized it, the IRS presidential audit program was dormant during Trump's term. Perhaps this should not have been surprising, given that Trump's Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin was the first Treasury Secretary to refuse to turn over tax information in response to a congressional request, and when Congress sued to obtain compliance, a Trump-appointed judge, Trevor McFadden, delayed ruling on the case until after Trump had left office. but it surely must be stunning to most Americans that among the reasons cited by IRS officials for their failure to follow policy was that they were apparently intimidated by the complexities of Trump's taxes. In an internal memo, the agency seemed to whine about the return having, quote, about 400 flow-through returns, and since some of these are tiered, a total of 500 flow-through returns, which meant that to, quote, do a thorough review of these returns, we would need a team much larger than the current team. A flow-through entity is one in which the income that comes into the business passes on to the owner and is commonly used to reduce taxation. In sum, the IRS rewarded Trump's complex business structures by throwing their hands up at the prospect of having to dig into all those hundreds of records. Does it sound a little bit like FTX, anybody? Excuse me, but I thought that was what IRS agents like to do. Note that the agency had no concerns about following its policies when it came to auditing for Obama and then Vice President Joe Biden. The recent disclosure that, during the Trump administration, the president regularly asked for audits of those he considered his political enemies, and invasive audits of former FBI Director James Comey and Deputy Director Andrew McCabe did occur, should raise deep concerns and trigger increased scrutiny. Such scrutiny could be undertaken by the agency's Office of Inspector General, or the Justice Department's Tax Division, not to mention Congress, although further work by the House of Representatives on the issue is highly unlikely, given that the Republicans are about to take control of the House. It's over, everybody. This is all we're going to get. Chairman Neal and the present Ways and Means Committee have fought the good fight and put a lie to repeated claims that their investigation lacked legitimate purpose. All along, Neal stated that the purpose was to perform oversight on the effectiveness of the presidential audit program and, quote, on behalf of the American people, to determine if that policy is being followed. We, the people, have our answer now, and it isn't pretty. True. Looks like the IRS were in the tank. Same with the Secret Service. And, geez, who else was kowtowing for Trump? Yikes. C'est pas bon là. No bueno. Alright, moving on. Next story is Vanity Fair, Best 11. That sound you hear is Donald Trump screaming at the Mar-a-Lago pool boys over the release of his tax returns and possible prison time. She's like the lib who likes to lean in. Some of her pieces are okay. Let's make this bigger. Ooh, I like that. Does that fit the page? Kinda. Yeah, kinda, sorta. There we go. Let's see if we can even get rid of that ad. There we go. Make that a bit smaller. Alright, best 11, everybody. It was a rough Thanksgiving at Mar-a-Lago this year, and Christmas is not looking much better. Unless Donald Trump accusing Santa of being a, quote, mole for radical left Democrats, and throwing a plate of cookies and milk against the wall is considered standard holiday cheer in Palm Beach. On Tuesday, one day after the January 6th committee recommended the DOJ charge the ex-president with 4 major crimes, Punchbowl News reported that the House panel, quote, has begun extensively cooperating with the Justice Department's special counsel charged with overseeing investigations into former President Donald Trump. That special counsel, Jack Smith, the dude who they got from The Hague, who has prosecuted war criminals, apparently, reportedly sent the committee a letter on December 5th, quote, requesting all of the panel's materials from the 18-month probe. And beginning last week, the panel started, quote, sending Smith's team documents and transcripts, with plans to share more documents and transcripts in the coming days, according to Punchbowl News source. The reported cooperation marks a new front in the DOJ's criminal investigation of Trump's attempt to overturn the 2020 election results and the insurrection that followed. Previously, the January 6th committee had chosen not to share its findings with the department. Now the committee's year plus of legwork, including interviews with more than 1,000 witnesses, holy cow, could prove extremely valuable to Smith's investigation. Earlier this month, CNN reported that, while some in Trump's inner circle viewed Smith's appointment by Attorney General Merrick Garland as a positive development for the ex-president's freedom, others were worried he was brought in as a hitman and is likely to indict the guy. In other less than positive developments for the 2024 presidential candidate, the House Ways and Means Committee voted on Tuesday to publicly release 6 years of Trump's tax returns, which it obtained earlier this month to the former guy's extreme chagrin. Trump, of course, has spent years going to extreme lengths to keep his tax documents under lock and key. He invented a rule that he couldn't release them because they were under audit. He begged the Supreme Court to save him, and he installed a Treasury Secretary who effectively took a vow to hide every copy of the returns in his anal cavity before the Treasury ultimately let Congress get its hands on them. I'm not too sure this metaphor works best, Levin, because that means they got their hands all up in his cavity. So this turn of events will obviously be deeply upsetting to him. Prior to the vote, Republicans insisted that releasing the returns could lead to horrible, horrible acts of transparency. Kevin Brady warns that releasing Trump's tax returns could lead to the release of tax returns of Supreme Court justices. Stop. Stop.
Going forward, the Majority Chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee and the Senate Finance Committee will have nearly unlimited power to target and make public the tax returns of private citizens. And not just private citizens, political enemies, business and labor leaders, or even the returns of Supreme Court justices themselves.
Oh my gosh.
No party in Congress should have that power.
That's
no
insane.
individuals in Congress should have that power. It's a power to embarrass, to harass, or destroy Americans through disclosure of their tax returns.
Can you imagine believing that, Tripe? Imagine like being like, yeah, that makes sense to me. He's speaking sense. Okay, carrying on. Well, it could be some time before the documents are released to the public. The New York Times previously noted that they may not contain major new revelations, as we've already learned a tremendous amount about Trump's finances over the last several years. In 2019, for instance, Michael Cohen, then president's former attorney, told Congress that Trump regularly inflated and deflated the value of his assets when it benefited him. And earlier this year, the New York Attorney General's office sued Trump and his 3 eldest children on accusations of lying to lenders, insurers, and tax authorities about said assets. At the time the suit was filed, an attorney for Trump insisted that, quote, absolutely no wrongdoing has taken place. Meanwhile, earlier this month, Trump's family business was found guilty of multiple counts of tax fraud, among other things. And then, of course, there's the 2018 story from the Times, which won a Pulitzer, revealing that Trump amassed much of his fortune through, quote, dubious tax schemes, some of which included instances of outright fraud. Your tax returns are boring as hell? That's a good thing. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. I'm waiting for my tax situation to be something I have to like actively manage. Right now it's just like a pretty easy one and done. Yay, poverty. At the time of publication, a lawyer for Trump insisted that the New York Times allegations of fraud and tax evasion are 100% false and highly defamatory. There is no fraud or tax evasion by anyone, end quote. He added that if there was fraud or tax evasion, Trump had nothing to do with it, saying, quote, President Trump had virtually no involvement whatsoever with these matters. 2 years later, the same news organization revealed that Trump had paid $750 in federal income in 2016. That's crazy. Another $750 in 2017 and bupkis in 10 of the previous 15 years. How? He has gold toilets. How does the guy with gold toilets pay less taxes than the average American? So yeah, all in all, it's not shaping up to be a great week for the ex-president, though given that he's reportedly cocooning himself in a Mar-a-Lago bubble of good news that the outside world cannot penetrate, perhaps Christmas can be saved after all. Hoo-wee. Good job, Bess. Okay, let's move on. I wanted to take a look at the, what was it? The Zelenskyy address. Thought that could be interesting. History. All right, I think this is it. Yay. Just give me half a sec. I figured out the framing problem. There we go. Okay, feels like there's a doors that open. I've got a bunch of cold air coming in, so I'm gonna check to see if the door's open. I'll do a couple. Yeah, probably not a good idea to have a door in the house open, -20 below weather. Probably a bad idea. We're still clapping? I didn't miss anything, did I?
Members.
Do I speed this up?
Members of Congress.
I think it's too much.
I think it is. Members of Congress, I have the high privilege and the distinct honor of presenting to you His Excellency Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of the Ukraine.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's too much for me. All this for our great people. Thank you so much.
He's just speaking in English. Think there's gonna be like subtitles?
Dear Americans,
Is he into the whole
in
thing
all
English?
states, cities, and communities, all those who value freedom and justice, who cherish it as strongly as we Ukrainians, in all our cities, in each and every family, I hope my words of respect and gratitude resonate in each American heart. Madam Vice President, I thank you for your efforts in helping Ukraine. Madam Speaker, you bravely visited Ukraine during the full-fledged war. Thank you very much. Great honor. Thank you. Great privilege to be here. Dear members of the Congress, representatives of both parties, who also visited Kyiv, esteemed congressmen and senators from both parties who will visit Ukraine, I'm sure, in the future. Dear representatives of diaspora,
Representatives of diaspora. Power in politics, eh? Name drop.
Present in this chamber and spread across the country, dear journalists. It's a great honor for me to be at the U.S. Congress and speak to you and all Americans. Against all odds and doom and gloom scenarios, Ukraine didn't fall.
Yeah,
Ukraine is alive and kicking.
Let's go. Another standing ovation.
Thank you.
It's like more standing than sitting in church.
And it gives me good reason to share with you our first joint victory. We defeated Russia in the battle for minds of the world. We have no fear, nor should anyone in the world have it. Ukraine's gained this victory, and it gives us courage, which inspires the entire world. Americans gained this victory, and that's why you have succeeded in uniting the global community to protect freedom and international law. Europeans gained this victory, and that's why Europe is now stronger and more independent than ever. The Russian tyranny has lost control over us.
Here. There was something I came across a while back about like Ukrainian generals talking about how they knew that if they join NATO, that there's no way for them. Either they join NATO and it sparks a full-fledged war with Russia, or they don't join NATO and Russia just slowly consumes them bit by bit, like a snake eating, you know, a rabbit or something.
And it will never influence our minds again. Yet, we have to do whatever it takes to ensure that countries of the global south also gain such victory. I know one more, I think, very important thing. The Russians will stand a chance to be free only when they defeat the Kremlin in their minds.
Oh. There's a war for your mind, he says.
Yet, the battle continues, and we have to defeat the Kremlin on the battlefield. Yes, this battle is not only for the territory, for this or another part of Europe. The battle is not only for life, freedom, and security of Ukrainians or any other nation which Russia attempts to conquer. This struggle will define in what world our children and grandchildren will live, and then their children and grandchildren. It will define whether it will be a democracy of Ukrainians and for Americans, for all. This battle cannot be frozen or postponed. It cannot be ignored, hoping that the ocean or something else will provide a protection. From the United States to China, from Europe to Latin America, and from Africa to Australia, the world is too interconnected and interdependent to allow someone to stay aside and at the same time to feel safe when such a battle continues.
Yeah, no kidding.
Our two nations are allies in this battle. And next year will be a turning point. I know it, the point when Ukrainian courage and American resolve must guarantee the future of our common freedom, the freedom of people who stand for their values. Ladies and gentlemen.
Oh boy, I think I need to.
Ladies and gentlemen, Americans. Yesterday, before coming here to Washington, D.C., I was at the front line.
That was a picture that went around.
In our stronghold in the east of Ukraine, in the Donbass. The Russian military and mercenaries have been attacking Bakhmut non-stop since May. They have been attacking it day and night, but Bakhmut stands. Last year, 70,000 people lived there in Bakhmut, in this city, and now only few civilians stay. Every inch of that land is soaked in blood. Roaring guns sound every hour. Trenches in the Donbass change hands several times a day in fierce combat and even hand fighting. But the Ukrainian Donbass stands.
Let's go. Even hand to hand, he says. That's wild.
Russians use everything they have against Bakhmut and our beautiful cities. The occupiers have a significant advantage in artillery. They have an advantage in ammunition. They have much more missiles and planes than we ever had. And it's true, but our defense forces stand. And we all are proud of them. The Russians' tactic is primitive. They burn down and destroy everything they see. They send thugs to the front lines. They send convicts to the war. They threw everything against us, similar to the other tyranny, which is in the Battle of the Bulge. Threw everything it had against the free world, just like the brave American soldiers which held their lines and fought back Hitler's forces during the Christmas of 1944. Brave Ukrainian soldiers are doing the same to Putin's forces this Christmas. Ukraine holds its lines and will never surrender.
It's going to be a huge morale boost for anybody watching from Ukraine. Standing ovation. This is like when...
So here in the front line, the tyranny which has no lack of cruelty against the lives of free people. And your support is crucial, not just to stand in such fight, but to get to the turning point to win on the battlefield. We have artillery. Yes. Thank you. We have it. Is it enough? Honestly, not really. To ensure Bakhmut is not just a stronghold that holds back the Russian army, but for the Russian army to completely pull out, more cannons and shells are needed. If so, just like the Battle of Saratoga, the fight for Bakhmut will change the trajectory of our war for independence and for freedom. If your patriots stop the Russian terror against our cities, it will let Ukrainian patriots work to the full to defend our freedom. When Russia cannot reach our cities, but its artillery, it tries to destroy them with missile attacks. More than that, Russia found an ally in this genocidal policy. Iran. Iranian deadly drones sent to Russia in hundreds became a threat to our critical infrastructure. That is how one terrorist has found the other. It is just a matter of time when they will strike against your other allies. If we do not stop them now, we must do it. I believe there should be no taboos between us in our alliance. Ukraine never asked the American soldiers to fight on our land instead of us. I assure you that Ukrainian soldiers can perfectly operate American tanks and planes themselves. Financial assistance is also critically important, and I would like to thank you very much. Thank you for both financial packages you have already provided us with and the ones you may be willing to decide on. Your money is not charity. It's an investment in the global security and democracy that we handle in the most responsible way.
Oh, look, there's Boebert and Matt Gaetz not standing.
Russia.
There it was.
Russia could stop its aggression.
Go back, go back. Oh, look at them. Oh, they're so moody and they're so unhappy. Real sticks in the mud there.
Russia could stop its aggression. Really, if it wanted to. But you can speed up our victory. I know it. And it will prove to any potential aggressor that no one can succeed in breaking national borders. No one committing atrocities and reigning over people against their will. It would be naive to wait for steps towards peace from Russia, which enjoys being a terrorist state. Russians are still poisoned by the Kremlin. The restoration of international legal order is our joint task. We need peace. Yes, Ukraine has already offered proposals, which I just discussed with President Biden, our peace formula, 10 points which should and must be implemented for our joint security, guaranteed for decades ahead. And the summit which can be held. I'm glad to stress that President Biden supported our peace initiative today. Each of you, ladies and gentlemen, can assist in the implementation to ensure that America's leadership remains solid, bicameral, and bipartisan. Thank you.
What a word.
You can strengthen sanctions to make Russia feel how ruinous its aggression truly is. It is in your power, really, to help us bring to justice everyone who started this unprovoked and criminal war. Let's do it. Let terrorists...
Let us do it. Show me what you got.
Let the terrorist state be held responsible for its terror and aggression and compensate all losses done by this war. Let the world see that the United States are here. Ladies and gentlemen, Americans, in 2 days, we will celebrate Christmas.
Christmas?
Maybe candlelit. Not because it's more romantic, no, but because there will be no electricity. Millions won't have neither heating nor running water. All of these will be the result of Russian missile and drone attacks on our energy infrastructure. But we do not complain. We do not judge and compare whose life is easier. Your well-being is the product of your national security, the result of your struggle for independence and your many victories. We, Ukrainians, will also go through our war of independence and freedom with dignity and success. We'll celebrate Christmas. Celebrate Christmas, and even if there is no electricity, the light of our faith in ourselves will not be put out. If Russian missiles attack us, we'll do our best to protect ourselves. If they attack us with Iranian drones, and our people will have to go to bomb shelters on Christmas Eve, Ukrainians will still sit down at the holiday table and cheer up each other. And we don't have to know everyone's wish, as we know that all of us, millions of Ukrainians, wish the same: victory. Only victory.
Victory! Victory! Let's go!
We already built strong Ukraine with strong people, strong army, strong institutions together with you. We developed strong security guarantees for our country and for entire Europe and the world together with you. And also together with you, we'll put in place everyone who will defy freedom. Put in.
We're a pro-freedom stream here.
This will be the basis to protect democracy in Europe and the world over. Now, on the special Christmas time, I want to thank you, all of you. I thank every American family which cherishes the warmth of its home and wishes the same warmth to other people. I thank President Biden and both parties at the Senate and the House for your invaluable assistance. I thank your cities and your citizens who supported Ukraine this year, who hosted our Ukrainians, our people, who waved our national flags, who acted to help us. Thank you all, from everyone who is now at the front line, from everyone who is evading victory. Standing here today, I recall the words of the President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, which are, I think, so good for this moment. The American people, in their righteous might, will win through to absolute victory. The Ukrainian people will win too, absolutely. I know that everything depends on us, on Ukrainian armed forces, yet so much depends on the world. So much in the world depends on you. When I was in Bakhmut yesterday, our heroes
need that sweet American
gave me
cash.
the flag, the battle flag, the flag of those who defend Ukraine, Europe, and the world at the cost of their lives. They asked me to bring this flag to you, to the U.S. Congress, to members of the House of Representatives and senators whose decisions can save millions of people. So let these decisions be taken. Let this flag stay with you, ladies and gentlemen. This flag is a symbol of our victory in this war. We stand, we fight, and we will win because we are united. Ukraine, America, and the entire free world.
Free world, freedom! Can I get a shout out for freedom? Oh wow, he brought it for her. Oh, it's so awkward. Oh, what that was. Oh boy, the cringe. The cringe. Americans don't do the whole European kiss to kiss. That was so cringy.
Just one thing, if I can, the last thing, thank you so much. May God protect our brave troops and citizens. May God forever bless the United States of America. Merry Christmas and happy, victorious New Year. Slava Ukraine.
Slava you. Slava you. Yeah, there it is. Give him a flag. You give us a flag, we gave you a flag. But you notice how his is signed? And there's... I wonder if there's a sign. Kind of want to have the flag signed. That's a nice case. What a difference. They got like this big case for it. He's just got some sloppy flag. He's in green wartime slacks. So much symbolism happening. Oh man. Oh man, oh jeez. Okay, alright. Okay.
Somebody will carry it.
I can hold.
Okay, we'll turn around.
Yes.
There we go.
She's like, she wants the symbolism. Don't trip and fall. That would also be symbolic.
This flag was flown over the Capitol today in honor of the President's visit.
Thank you.
This is one of our daily flags. It has no historical significance whatsoever, but it's, you know, it's been used once. We got a big stack of these things. Okay. Alright. Okay. Alright. So, yeah. I got another stream later today. That's right. I will be streaming again later on. Let's see here. Yeah, I'll be streaming later today at probably around 4:30. Start at 4:30, and then I'll be on Globus the Elder show at 5 o'clock. We're going to be talking about artificial intelligence, specifically ChatGPT, which if you haven't gotten the chance to check it out and tinker and have fun, it's free. It's just free now. It used to be paywalled, but now they made it open for the world. So I super recommend that you check this out. You know, you take a look at it, and yeah, it's really fun. It's really interesting. And yeah, we'll have a chat. This will be my first time on Globus's show, so we'll see what that's like. And yeah, it's been pretty chill. So I'm looking forward to it. And artificial intelligence is only getting crazier and crazier. There was like a clip going around of a neural net that is replacing VTubers and playing Osu or whatever, like that rhythm DDR4 game. DDR game, not DDR4. Okay, all right. I'm heading out. I'll see you later, everybody. Y'all have a good one. Bye.